Alrighty, so it is part 3 of the SX4 head gasket install. This 2012 SX4 Suzuki. The first two parts were basically me just dismantling everything and taking it all apart, getting the head off. And right now I'm just doing a little update video because the job's not done, but as you can see the head's back on. Just a quick little rundown of what I did, just in case if anybody's trying to attempt this job. So in the last two, I ended up taking the head off with the manifold, exhaust manifold still. I left the manifold on the car still, but it's just easier to get I ended up taking the water pump out, even though you don't have to, but I ended up taking the water pump out just because I wanted to check it out, because this car had some overheating issues. I just wanted to make sure that the water pump blades and all that, impeller and all that stuff were still in good shape, the bearings and everything. So it seemed fine. So I don't think that's the issue of the overheating issue. So I'm just going to go ahead and reuse it, even though I should have just bought a new one. They're cheap, but I'm cheap, so I'm going to reuse that. I did put a new gasket on it, and it was just easier to put back in with the manifold out, because this tube here runs all the way kind of like in the back, towards the back, and it's got a couple of hoses that hook up back there, and there's a 10mm here that it bolts to, and there's a 10mm, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but there's a 10mm like back here somewhere. I don't think you can see it, but let's see if my finger shows it. Nah, you're not going to be able to see it, but there's a 10mm back here where that pipe connects to those two hoses back here, and that holds that pipe in, and then there's another 10mm here that holds that pipe into the water pump here. So it's just easier to put this pipe back in with the manifold out of the way. So I ended up doing that, and the manifold was kind of a hassle. I was going to take it off earlier, but it was kind of a hassle to get these 4 bolts out. So for a few days I just kind of got to them and soaked them with some PB Blaster a little bit. Every couple days or whatever, I would just throw some PB Blaster in those on the top side just to soak into the threads. And then I hit it with an air impact gun on high, and the bottom 2 came off pretty easily. These 2 didn't come off. I had to use a little heat. My propane torch, my little handheld propane torch, this one was starting to get a little warped too. You see it starting to strip a little bit. But I ended up getting them out. They didn't break, so that's good. So that'll be helpful. Give me some room to get that out of the way. This filter was super loose. I tightened it up a bunch because it's super loose. I can only imagine it's because it's hard to get in there. I don't know how you're supposed to change this oil filter on these cars. I've never done one on one of these cars. But with the air conditioning compressor in the way, and like the dipstick tube and all, and the manifolds here, like I have no clue. It's got to be super hard to get this on and off, so whoever did it last just kind of got it on hand tight. It's got to be super hard to get the wrench on there, the oil filter wrench. So anyways, I tightened it up a little bit just now. They probably leave it super loose to get it so it's easier to get off, but whatever. I'll figure it out when it comes time to do an oil change if I still have the car in a few thousand miles or whatever. The oil's brand new in it now. I just checked. I think they had just gotten this oil changed, so I'm not going to worry about it for now. So the water pump went back in without the tube because it's a lot easier, and without the hose. And then I put the hose back on after. That's the hose that connects to the water pump there. That one. And this is the little plastic like thermostat housing there. So I left that on, and I just disconnected the hose. So it's easier to just kind of fish the water pump down in there. The bolts for the water pump are 12mm. There's one here on the top side, and then there's one back here, back there. See, that's another reason why you gotta take this tube off, because it just makes it easier to get to that bolt back there. And then there's one underneath. It's kind of like underneath, like you gotta kind of feel for it, but it's like right underneath here. Another 12mm. So there's 3 holding the water pump on. I think there's like 2 short ones and 1 long one, or something like that, or 2 long ones and 1 short one. But it comes out fairly easily. Once you get, you gotta kind of finagle the bolts. I used a 1/4 inch. I used a 3/4 inch. I don't know. It was kind of a hassle to figure out which tools to use, but I ended up getting it out and in, so it's not a big deal. what else did I do? So the intake manifold's back on, fuel rail's back on, everything's bolted down, heads torqued down, the cams are in, these I think they're called bearing caps or cam bearing caps are in. These are like torqued to like, I don't know, 7 to 8. I probably did like a little bit more just because I'm reusing the bolts, so I probably did like 9 to 10 foot-pounds on those. I know the head bolts are new, and there's a process if you don't know how to put in the head bolts. I know there's a process like which ones to go. You have to like start and do like an X pattern, and there's also a process in how to torque them down a little bit at a time. So look into that. I'm not going to give any advice on that stuff. That's on you. All these bolts are all torqued down now, about 10 foot-pounds. And there's one down there. That's for the head as well. I did it last. I don't even know if you're supposed to do last, but I did that one last after doing all the main head bolts. Make sure all those are tight. And then this last one I did at the end. I also tightened that down to probably, I don't know, 40, 50 foot-pounds, just like the regular head bolts. Because I couldn't find a torque spec for that bolt, but I figured it's got to be 40 or 50 foot-pounds like the head bolts, because oil was leaking out of here. Right there, where the head gasket meets the block, in this corner, there was oil leaking out of there before I took it off, and I'm assuming it's because this bolt was maybe a little bit loose. So I'm hoping that doesn't leak any oil out of there anymore. And what else? So tomorrow I'll be doing the timing chain, hopefully. I'll figure that out. I haven't done it because I'm not really 100% sure what I'm doing yet. I'm not sure if I have to take the guide tensioner out. This thing, I don't know if you can see it. This guide tensioner, I'm not sure if that has to come out first before I put the chain in and the other guide rail. This plastic thing, there's another one that goes on this side that runs along that. So I'm not sure if I have to take this out first. I was thinking I could just push it in, but it's kind of hard to push back in, so I'm not sure how that works. I'm not sure if there's somebody's telling me that there's like that bolt on the top of it. It's like a release. See that bolt almost looks like a screw with a Phillips head? That's like a release for the oil. I don't know if I can just open that up and press that back in, just so I can get a little slack on the guide, so that there's enough slack on the chain, so I can put the chain on here correctly, because this has to move over a little bit. And you turn the cam with a big wrench or a pipe wrench. You move it over. Get this line to line up with that top dead center. The motor's already set at top dead center on the bottom there on the crank pulley. I got that set top dead center when the head was off. I made sure it was top dead center. The piston was like this. Piston number 1 was all the way flushed perfectly with the top of the block. Same thing's gonna go with this. I don't have the cam gear on there. The cam gear is on the chain itself. And then there's this, I don't know what these are called, but use a big pipe wrench or something to kind of move the cam back and forth so you can get that set correctly with the chain. Maybe I'll do a video on that when I'm doing it. And that should be it. That's going to be the hardest part, is getting that chain on, and then actually the hardest part is probably going to be putting this timing cover back on, because there's no gasket. It's all RTV on the sides here, which is a nightmare to clean up. To begin with, you got to make sure all that stuff's off of there before you even attempt to put any of this stuff back together. So I had to clean up all this RT. This was all RTV on the oil pan, and then all up along the sides, Oh my god, it was such a hassle with a little screwdriver or like a razor blade. It was a nightmare, and it's gonna be a nightmare putting this timing cover back in, because you got to put the RTV on the timing cover first, and then you got to kind of slide it down and not touch anything, because the RTV is going to go everywhere. It's going to be a nightmare, and especially because I didn't take any of the power steering pulley and everything, and the water pump and everything's still in there, so it should be interesting to see if I could even do it. But yeah, we're going to attempt that tomorrow, and hopefully I'll let you know how that goes. And other than that, the car is we're getting there. We got probably another day or so, because I'm not going too super fast. I'm taking my time because I don't want to screw anything up. The only thing that I did screw up that I want to talk about, unrelated to the head gasket or the head job that I'm doing, is I decided to pull the oil pan, not the oil pan, the transmission pan, because I don't know, I just wanted to do the CVT oil in here. I thought there might have been an issue with the CVT oil. because I checked it and it wasn't looking too good, so I took it off just to check what was going on. So I ended up replacing the oil pan, not the oil pan, the transmission pan gasket and the filter in there, and I'm gonna put new oil in it. But the thing is, I got a Felpro replacement gasket for this, and it's a paper gasket, right? And the original gasket that I pulled off was a metal gasket. And I remember reading about this, but I just didn't even think about it when I was doing it. So when I put it back in, I put our TV along, you know, the sides of this pan on the transmission side and on the pan side, just because. And then the torque spec was 10 pounds on the bolts. So I was like, all right, let me do 10 pounds. So I did 10 pounds. I started doing 10 pounds, and then I was like, oh man. Then I started realizing that 10 pounds is for a metal gasket, not a paper gasket. The paper gaskets are way less. So as you can see right here, that is a gasket that is squeezing out. I was doing 10 foot-pounds of torque on here, and the paper gasket started squeezing out of the sides, and I was like, oh shit. So I'm just gonna leave it right now. I mean, it's got a shitload of RTV on both sides. So I'm just gonna leave right now. I'm gonna put the oil in it, and we're gonna start it and run it for a little bit. And if it leaks, whatever, I'll just have to drain the oil and get a new gasket and then do it right the next time. But now I know better, and I'm just letting you guys know, because if you get a Felpro paper gasket, if you're doing an oil transmission pan filter and you're gonna do the gasket and it's a paper gasket, do not over tighten these bolts, because it's just gonna squeeze out like that, because it's not a metal gasket. So I kind of screwed up there, but whatever. This is my first time doing it. I know better for next time, and I'm letting you guys know so you don't make the same screw up. So I hope you appreciate it, and that's it for now. I'm gonna try to get this finished this weekend, but it's supposed to rain like crazy, so we'll see what happens. And I guess that's it. Thanks for watching, and leave me some comments, likes, and shares. And yeah, thanks for watching again. Explaining the rant of this SX4 head job. Alright, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching again. Bye.